Wow, was that a awesome season finale. Okay, there is a lot of stuff to go over, and I know I'm not going to be able to get it in a 10-minute video time frame, so I'm going to start from what I can get at. Okay, basically, the episode starts very unpredictably. It starts out in the year 2013, where Lois and Clark are both working at the Daily Planet, and Perry White is their editor. Jimmy Olsen is mentioned. Lex Luthor is in the papers. He's apparently running for presidency. We see a glimpse of the Superman costume as Clark, grabbing an airplane, and then it cuts away and it's revealed to be Clark's dream. Then we wake up and Clark finds a gift from his mom where apparently she decided to leave him something if he ever chose to stay behind instead of choosing the Book of Rao. And it turns out, you're not going to believe this, but they only show up for a couple seconds in his eye, so it's not something that big spoiler-wise, but yeah, it is sort of big. It's the Superman costume. It's very heavily implied to be the Superman costume, at least. You see the blue and you see the yellow and red Superman House of L logo on the chest, so it's very like affirmative that it's very likely, I can say at this point, it was Superman costume. Anyway, Lois goes to the top of or at least she meets Zod somewhere, where Zod pretends that he was the Blur, the one that contacted her. And basically, it is sort of a case where, yeah, she's got the whole. She's not buying it head first. She's really saying like, okay, you said that nobody should know. I said that nobody should know your identity. You said that people would pose as you, and Zod sort of tries to beat around the bush. And so that's sort of where eventually Lois buys into the lie, but not easily. So that was definitely something that I admired the writers for doing. And then she gets told that Clark is the one who has the Book of Ra, which is what he needs. So, meanwhile, Clark, we find out that Zod apparently lied about the Book of Ra. It's not the Kryptonian Bible. It's just this thing that sends the Kandorians away. It's something that Jor-El left for him to send the Kandorians away if they were ever needed to. So, why would... you know what, never mind. I'll go into that in another video. But basically, Chloe is assembling all of the Justice Society, or as many Justice Society and Justice League members as she can. This is sort of where I felt a bit cheap, because they had all this guest stuff like Carter Hall, Courtney Whitmore, Cyborg, Black Canary, John Jones. They're all in there, but they kind of cheated with it. Like, even when I saw this, I'm like, okay, are they putting too many people in this episode? But it still feels a bit cheap. They're all on computer screens, so it's very likely that what they did was they recorded the actors earlier, and then they put it on, so it's like, oh, they're there. But they're sort of all over the world trying to stop the Kandorians because they're going across the world and leaving their mark, the House of Zod mark, all across the planet. On like Athens, Egypt, Great Wall of China, stuff like that. And basically, at the same time, Zod has gone to the fortress to try and stop Jor-El from contacting Clark. And Tess is there to meet him. And she says that she's not going to let him get in the way of Clark saving the world. And that's sort of where Zod kind of kicks the crap out of her. And then she kicks the crap out of him because she's got kryptonite. And then Zod decides to use his heat vision to burn her. Now, when you see Tess half burned, like it literally is half burned, the first thing that came to my mind was definitely Harvey Dent from The Dark Knight, his Two-Face persona. But at the same time, the makeup job was not the best, but at the same time, I think they knew that because they kept her in the dark most of the time. And also, Clark, when he finds out about the book, like, he's sort of contemplating with the Book of Rao. He doesn't want to leave. And this is actually where it's not really... Clark has always been the sort of guy who kind of puts people before himself, but he's sort of at the same time doing that here because he's not saying, I don't want to leave because I don't want to leave my home. He's saying, I don't want to leave because I know my destiny. I'm supposed to save the world from anything that could destroy it, like in the future. And that's sort of where it doesn't feel that selfish to him, but I was surprised. I thought he was going to go, okay, you know what, if it's going to be if it's going to mean that my place on Earth is taken for Zod and the Kandorians to be stopped, so be it. But yeah, eventually he does cave into that. And that's sort of where Chloe has a bit of a heartbreaking moment because she realizes her best friend for years is going to be leaving, and Olivie, all I almost said Ollie and Oliver at the same time. Ollie says that Clark should tell to Lois before he leaves because he owes her the truth. And basically, Lois is sort of snooping through the Veritas journal, and she's the Book of Morale. And Clark tells her that he has something to confess to her. He admits that ever since that he came back in the episode Savior, he's felt like Lois is the one that he needs to have with him. And so he really admits that she is the one that he needs, sort of fulfilling Dr. Fate's prophecy that they were going to need each other. And that's sort of where Lois says that Perry White has offered her a job in Kenya at the foreign desk, and she's contemplating whether or not to leave it. And then she says, this is where it's sort of, it was the one thing that didn't make sense to me of the episode, because it was a really good episode. She says that, okay, she says that, oh my gosh, she said like, you're the thing that's most important to me, more important than going to Kenya. So why in the last episode did she break up with him? Because he clearly wasn't that important to her? Because she wasn't going to Kenya in hostage? I'm sorry, but that just doesn't make sense. It felt like, the good thing was that it felt like the real Lois Lane had come back to Smallville for Salvation. So that's, and you get a lot of that here. Because there was a scene that came up where Zod, he tries to get the Book of Rao out of Lois's hand because she actually took it out of Clark's pocket, and when he puts his hand on her shoulder and she touches it, she knows something's off, and she questions I'll give you the book of I hid the Book of Rao, because when she realizes that he wants the book, she's like, I hid the Book of Rao in the place where I said that you're the most important to me, and he has no idea what that is, obviously. So she catches him she catches him in the act, and he says that I'm not the Blur, but I don't really care if you live or die. He swats Lois away, and Clark goes to save her, and he actually is standing in the dark when she gives him the Book of Rao. And that's sort of where it's like, okay, how do you know that he wants the Book of Rao? That was another thing that just came to mind that didn't sort of make sense, but she gives him the Book of Rao. They're kissing in the dark, because she says, like, can you please say something? At first you're like, okay, he's not going to say anything. But then when she's kissing the Blur in the dark and he speeds off, that's sort of where it's like, Lois is smart enough to figure that out. If she can figure that with the touch of a hand, she can figure it out. So yeah, sure enough, when she comes out, she's just like, Clark. So yeah, it's not 100% positive that she knows it is Clark, but it's probably going to end up like that. She's not, like I said, she's not an idiot. And going back, because this is something earlier, I totally skipped over this, I'm sorry. There was a little bit of Ollie and Chloe tension, and Ollie reveals that he's had a Watchtower satellite put up, because the Kandorians have been destroying the satellites, and he's going to the Earth station to get it. And basically, when he goes to get it, he gets cornered by these Kandorians. Or no. Actually, forget that. He gets cornered by the by these people that are going in for him. And then he says, before he says to Chloe, "I love you," he says, "They're not Kandorians." And also earlier, while Tess was in the hospital, and she, unfortunately, I really hate to say this for people that like Tess, but Tess is the one that dies in the season finale. When she dies, there's this old woman in a hood sitting there, and she's knitting, and she goes into Tess's room when they call her, when they say her time of death. And that's where I sort of thought, is this a reference to Granny Goodness? Because I've been wanting a Darkseid, just them to bring Darkseid in, because that would really be awesome. But it's something that Granny Goodness is a character that you really, very difficult to bring to life seriously in like a show like Smallville. So I hope that they're going to be able to bring it to life, something that I can take seriously and a lot of us can take seriously. Anyway, the episode comes to where the Kandorians figure out through their hearing, because Zod's arguing with Clark, and he mentions that he's the one that killed he's the one that killed Feora, and they turn against him. They agree to go into the alternate dimension. Clark puts the Book of Rao onto a crystal console that Tess told him to put it on. And then they're all starting to go up, kind of like Star Trek being beamed up. And then Zod fights Steve. He pulls the blue kryptonite to turn them both mortal. And then they're fighting. He ends up stabbing Clark on the ledge of the building. And that's sort of where Clark falls off. He's falling off the edge of the building. Zod gets taken up into who knows where with the rest of the Kandorians. And the season ends with Clark falling with this blue kryptonite dagger in his stomach, falling to his death. Or what we can only assume to be his death, unless he flies, which is kind of impossible with blue kryptonite. Anyway, that was an awesome finale.